I'm Vinit Patil. I'm your moderator. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Ribbon. Ribbon is a hybrid trade show platform that just allows shows to go full-on omni-channel and extend with e-commerce and extend their lifespan from 3 days to 365. So we have with us Esther Boyle. Esther Boyle has worked for Fiera Milano for 19 years and became sales manager of Milano Home earlier this year. With her years of experience in home decor, lifestyle, fashion fairs, she brings unparalleled expertise in business development and exhibitor experience. So welcome, Esther.
Thank you.
We have Betina Moreira Infante. Did I say that correctly?
Yay!
As best as I could. Betina is the co-founder of Hangai Mountain Textiles, a family-owned and run business with a showroom in Basalt, Colorado, and a presence in Mongolia, where they source their natural fiber products and live for many years. Hangai Mountain Textiles' dedication to rare and exquisitely crafted cashmere and yak-down prose have made them the top exhibitor at Shop Object. Oh, excellent.
Nice.
And we have Weissman. Robert Weissman is the president of Alliance Media Strategies, where he develops and manages trade shows, conferences, and digital initiatives. He has produced shows such as Lighting World, World Store Expo, Restaurant Hotel Design, and Converting Machinery Expo. Alliance also provides bespoke consulting for private organizations and associations such as Print Graph Expo. Excellent. Welcome, Robert.
Nice to be here.
And last but not least, Jimmy MacDonald. Jimmy is the founder of the London Design Fair, launch director of Find in Singapore for Fiera Milano, and is now Ribbon's Global Fairs Liaison Director. So with 20 years experience, it's fair to say he's pretty seasoned in the design trade show space and has been listed in the 1,000 most influential Londoners by Citibank and the Evening Standard. All right, very cool. Okay, so we have everyone here. It's such a wide range of panelists from different experiences. We have the exhibitor, we have Robert, who has done a variety of shows. We have Esther, who is deeply ingrained in the home goods space, and also Jimmy, who sold a show, and now he's thinking home goods show look like. Right, that's the big question, and that's what we're here to talk about. The topic is home goods shows gone great. It's about it's focused on the B2B home goods space. Anything that you can put on a retail shelf. I would say that's probably a simple way to put it. A lot of retail stores, independent stores are buying home goods. It's everything that you see around your house. Right, that's the context. The shows are never going to go away because everybody has to live somewhere and everybody has stuff. So it's one of the biggest industries the biggest verticals in the trade show, B2B trade show space. So the questions we'll ask are about, what's the status of home goods shows today? What are the challenges? And my favorite part is, what are some ideas to make them even better? That's kind of the line of questioning we'll go through. So let's start with, I want to start with Betina, because you're an exhibitor and you are showcasing at shows. Can you tell me a little about, we were discussing the pandemic, and right now we're hopefully in post-pandemic times, right? So today compared to 4 years ago, 2018, 2019, what's changed?
Well, I have to say, for the shows, the attendance that we've seen, particularly this last show in New York. So we did Shop Object in New York City this August, and honestly, it was our best show. We've been at the show for probably 2.5 years now. February show was slow. I tended to think, this is all related to the US economy. There were the recession discussions, regional banks not really lending so much for retailers to stock inventory. So I felt like February was still slow, really slow. And then from August, we're seeing a real uptick. So we're really positive about this next season coming up, and hopefully next year as well. Like, we had our best show ever this August. So that was really positive. We're really looking forward to this next show at High Point. Here, one of the questions was, are retailers pulling back? I don't know that they're pulling back because it's at all pandemic related. For us in the United States, it might be more, some political risk, economic risks that we're seeing, some instability there. But in terms of, like, just now in Coterie, I had a colleague who had their best show, wrote over 200 orders at the show. That's massive.
Wow.
We have not done that yet, so I would love to, I get the feeling that there's momentum and it's picking up. So we're pretty confident about being part of these upcoming shows.
Okay, great. So you feel like it's come to the level that it was before, there was a slight drop, but it's come back to what it was before.
I
What do
think
you feel
so.
about that, Rob? Just broadly
I
speaking.
think the good news in the big picture is buyers like to go to shows. I think that's been proven, certainly during COVID when the virtual sort of fizzled out again. And just overall throughout the industry, the rebound has been incredible. And live shows have been one of the industry's least disrupted by digital initiatives, when you think about it. Now, as far as the specific amount of buying at shows, the good news is at shows like this, where we discussed it pre the meeting, they're actually replenishing inventory. So the good news is they're buying orders. It's not a marketing show. It's not a mind share show like looking at fixtures or the tools of the trade. It's what I called earlier B2B2C. So much of that is dependent on supply and demand. They're certainly not going to buy if there's not demand. Luckily, there is demand. Maybe they overbought initially. So they are buying. I think the key for any home show organizer is to make sure that they're buying at your show, because there is competition. Okay, we know there's going to be buying. Hopefully the retailer is buying, because if they're not buying, they're in a lot of trouble. They're buying stuff to resell. So I think that's the good news. And I guess I look at it as the glass half full. When an exhibitor at a B2B2C show leaves the show, they know their return on investment. They either wrote orders at the show or they know orders shortly thereafter were based on the show. Whereas at a marketing or a mind share show, you know, somebody buys something 6 months later. Was that because of the show, because of an ad, because of an email campaign, so on and so forth? So I think one of the things, just to be granular, interest rates are rising in the US. How that will affect the consumer, who is the object of this exercise, I don't know. But I think shows are robust, and much of it is planning, realistic planning on what's going to happen, keep an eye on interest rates, so on and so forth, and stay solvent and healthy and happy.
Okay, that's very interesting. That the buyers, especially the buyers, like to go to shows, and it hasn't changed even despite the pandemic fears and that the new normal.
If I can add one more thing, when a lot of what I like to call diplomatically nonsense was going around, as far as attendees go, they love to go to trade shows. Attendees ask for permission. Can I go to a trade show? And basically what they're asking, would you subsidize it for me? And going back, we always had people in the office who would, oh, gee, I have to go to a trade show in San Francisco. I have to go to a trade show in Chicago. Tell them they don't have to go. See what happens. Tell them. And if you want to be a hero, say it in front of the people who can't travel. You will be a hero for life. And then you'll hear, well, I already packed my golf clubs. I mean, my briefcase. So people love going to trade shows. Exhibitors, slightly different. Working the booth is tough, but they still like going.
We love it.
Thank you.
We love it. It's a great opportunity, not just to, I mean, of course we go to sell, but from the shows that I've done so far, there's a lot of learning and knowledge exchange that goes on with other exhibitors that is incredibly important. So, I've learned a lot from others that are attending these shows, and I wouldn't otherwise have a chance to go face to face with them or even know how to reach them, quite frankly.
That's true. So
can I actually jump in, because I know something extra on Esther.
All right. Okay. Please do.
Esther is launching a new show in 2024. And we had a really interesting conversation last week about the changing buyer matrix in Italy. And Esther, would you like to tell us how you're approaching the new show launch?
Well, thank you so much for the presentation. Yes, we studied a lot during COVID. The habit of the buyer, we wanted to be close to the market to create engagement. So we asked them what they wanted to create a show that would be consistent with their targets. So what we realized is that the buyer needs educational about the product, about the trends. They need to be close to the producers, to the manufacturer. And they asked us to find product made in, so to work a lot with craftsmen, to look for unicity, to look for quality, to look for sustainability. And so we did organize the show in a way to create four environments with very specific product inside of each one. And we'll keep it small to keep it human, because fairs is talking about, it's human who talk to humans and the humans who works with humans. And we want to keep this humanity of the trade shows. We worked a lot to express some trends, but always together with the exhibitors. So we asked the exhibitors on their booth to collaborate and to explain and to maybe bring some craftsmen people who create like plates or whatever, to explain the buyers the value of the products, because we want to start to have buyers who ask for how it's done, with what material it's done, and to be able to explain it to the end user, and to stop speaking only about how much does it cost, because it's quite reductive.
That's
great.
Yeah, that's really great. It's I love the fact that it's getting more local, and it's also smaller. You know, typically the trade shows are thinking about thousands and thousands of booths and aisles, and you just get lost. I think there was a trade show organizer who was talking about how they measure a healthcare show in miles. That's how much they need to walk, right? How do you even follow a show like that? So that is really cool to hear.
Yeah.
Thanks for that insight.
Thank you.
So my next question, Rob, to your point, there's interest rates are rising. We don't know whether the consumers are going to buy, and the retailers might be holding back, right? So in this kind of situation where there's some uncertainty with the buying, what can a trade show do to help the buyers place larger orders, or the exhibitors to get more orders?
Well, again, I think the key is, in terms of a supply and demand show, they're going there with a specific budget, the buyers. And I don't know that you can convince them to spend much more. You can give them valid reasons. Maybe you can show them facts about the yield curve or something like that. But by and large, I think it's just a question of getting them to use the show to specify. And that's the key. And managing expectations for the show organizer, managing expectations for the exhibitor. And sometimes honesty, believe it or not, is the best policy. When you're speaking to the exhibitor, we know this year might be off 3%. Make sure that you get your percent of that 3%, rather than, I always liked under-promising and over-delivering, and also get away from the numbers game. Get away from measuring attendance in miles of aisles. The key thing is, when people are measuring, we've always talked about getting away from the numbers game. 40 million people attended, so on and so forth. 30 million people were walking around in circles in some shows. It's the 80-20 rule. And there was so much talk about that. And I think we had the opportunity post-COVID to get away from that. And we're jumping right back into it. This is going to be the greatest XYZ show, so on and so forth. It's not the numbers of people. It's the buying power they represent and the number of organizations they represent. Let's say Amazon or Costco or a high-end seller only sends 10 people instead of 20 people. They're still there with the Amazon budget. They're still there with the Home Depot budget. Don't count the amount of people, count the amount of firms, prestigious firms and otherwise, and the buying power they represent. And when people might have complained to me about attendance, I said, well, what firms were not represented? How you say it in a well, every major buying influence was there. So I don't know that you could convince people. I'd love to hear alternate opinions.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. Trade shows are also evolving into bigger, they also have the bigger responsibility now, right? So the question for you, Esther, now, if the shows are going to get smaller and more curated, which is lovely, and more localized compared to the traditional show where you just try to get as many exhibitors packed in, and the show makes a lot of money because there's a lot of booths being sold. In this new type of show format, how does the show make the money, or how do you balance out that loss in revenue if you don't go mass market?
Okay, what we do is, the show are smaller also because it's more sustainable to come with a small booth than with huge booths. So what we do to people, what we say is, come with your novelties, come with what makes you different, because you're here to communicate who you are, who are your values, and what you can do for the market. So to help buyers to buy in a proper way, but we want to be interesting, because I've been visiting huge shows and very few of them are interesting. You walk, you see the same things around, people fighting with the price, not with the quality, not with the design. Sometimes it's just a matter of price in some huge shows. You are not buying design, you are buying tons of products, and it's not always interesting.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that, because as an exhibitor, that's exactly, like, the reason we started attending Shop Object is precisely for that. It was a small, highly curated show, bringing in buyers that, were looking for something unique. So for us as a brand, we we're not in Bergdorf's, we're not interested. We want to have really highly curated projects, and we want to work with specialty retailers and designers and, work with boutique hotels. So you have these projects that are really special, that have a lot of soul, and they're looking for something that is really unique. Those are the shows that we're most interested in. When I talk about High Point, the reason we're visiting High Point is because Shop Object is bringing a group to that show. Otherwise, High Point is a massive market, and I don't know that we would have done it
Right.
if it wasn't that Shop is bringing us there.
So let me ask you this: what would be the maximum number of? I mean, it's a kind of a strange question, but what would be the maximum size of a show you would be comfortable with?
I mean, honestly, I've seen, for example, Shop Object, where it is right now. It's grown a lot in the last 2 years, and I think where it is right now is pretty good. You have about, I don't know, 500 exhibitors. Certainly, there are a lot more buyers coming in. When I start to look at it's all about quality. So Esther, everything you're saying, I definitely am going to learn more about your show. It's all about the quality of the exhibitors and the quality of the buyers that you're bringing together,
Yes.
Because I want to see buyers that are not just, trying to find mass market products. And I mean, that's because that's the business that we're in. We're in low volume, really high quality. So I want to see buyers that are interested in luxury goods. I want to see buyers that are doing unique projects and looking for unique partners to bring into that project. But I understand that not everyone is in that business. So it's hard to have a show that accommodates everyone, unless maybe you find a way to like section things off, like here's this section where you have really high-end luxury specialty projects, vendors and buyers here, and then, a different area for other folks. But so it's easier to matchmake, let's say, which I think is fantastic.
I think that's a really good way to do it,
That's just, it increases the accessibility and the communication, right? I mean, for me, technology can either make or break the show.
Yeah.
I've never been to a show that doesn't have a tech component, so I can't even imagine. Like, for me, the technology is essential to making the show a success, but it has to be easy to use, easy to adopt, and I mean, I can go on and on. Those, like, constantly giving feedback. And the one thing I appreciate is if the technology can grow with the experience, that's the best way to go, because you can't preempt everything. And if you can act on feedback quickly, then you're definitely gonna have the best show. I can't even imagine a show without tech.
Okay.
It's just unthinkable to me.
That's very interesting. I mean, as a tech nerd, I'm always curious. I'm always thinking about the physical, the humanity side of it, right? And the technology plays the supporting role. So in terms of technology, what are your expectations? I think there's a good segue into the next question.
The ease of adoption, like I said, the tech can either make or break, because if it's not easy to use and it's not functioning well, it can really break the show. People get frustrated and discouraged, quite frankly. But if it's working really well, it facilitates everything at the show, right? First of all, I mean, for me, I don't like reinventing the wheel. And, we're a small business, so we do everything ourselves. We get help here and there, but basically we do it all. And we want to be involved in making sure that everything is perfect, especially when you're investing in a large show. So to be able to have an e-commerce integration, like everyone has a website, right? Who wants to reinvent an entire other website for the show? No, just put the APIs in there and pull all the information that we've already created, so we don't have to reinvent this wheel, right? That's essential. Then to be able to process orders at the show, essential. I mean, that's how we got to where we got in this last show. We did really well because we were writing the orders right there. They weren't walking away, being able to get the leads so that we can follow up. And I suspect on the buyer side as well, it's sometimes difficult to make decisions on the spot. So if they can bookmark or have that, marker what they liked and put it into a certain place and be able to quickly follow up, we get a lot of orders after the show when that's working well. So that lead generation, the easy adoption, to link to e-commerce platforms, the order processing is essential. And then the analytics for us is also important, to be able to go back and see, what we've done, how we've done it. The one thing that I wonder about is, like, how could you make it better? Like, what would make this show really cooler? So for us, it's like, well, I mean, we're all talking about AI. Is there a way to better matchmake with AI? Like, can I find that? I want to find the designers that are working on boutique hotels. How do I find them? Or how can I even know if they're there, let's say? Yeah, I mean, for me, having the virtual component to the show is really important. So when somebody looks at my profile, I know that they're looking at it. that's awesome. If I had more
Okay.
information about them, I'd be even more thrilled, because then I can actually say, oh, this is someone I actually want to talk to. How do I ensure that it's going to happen at the show so I get the face-to-face?
That makes total sense.
I
When
can't
hear
do
the word
that.
virtual, you
Yeah.
know, going back to in the late November, I started the first virtual trade show, and it's in that article, and you saw it. And after 3 months, I said, this is not going to work, because the original focus was on the virtual booth. And if,
Yeah, that's
you know,
different.
so now I understand what you're talking about, and I
Yeah.
agree 100%.
I mean, I think the tech has to support the live show.
Yeah.
I can't, you know, you can't just have a virtual show. Other people who are unfortunately can't make it, it gives them the accessibility to know who we are. And then they usually will reach out and we can still, you know, have a
Absolutely.
conversation, which is really, I think that component increases the communication and adds the accessibility component. The one thing that I think is important, going back to what Esther was saying, is that, you know, what sells our product is our story. We have a very personal story. Our business, you know, we don't try to sell tens of thousands of throws. We try to make sure that we have really solid partnership, that the business has a lot of purpose and soul to what we're doing. We're really invested in our partners in Mongolia. So being able, that's what sets us apart, right? From the Loropianas of the world, let's say.
If I can interrupt, have you ever got together with a group of exhibitors who are of the similar echelon as you and say, let's start our own bespoke show, or go to a show organizer? We want a bespoke show. We want a vetted show. It's not for everybody. And
no, but I'm
like
going to talk to Esther.
Is there anything better than a group of exhibitors going to a show organizer and say, we want this show?
Yeah, that's,
you're not, it's not a 1,000 booth show. Will you run this? It might be a 100 booth show. It's a bespoke show. And these are the type of people who can exhibit. These are the type of people who can attend. You know, with a blank sheet of paper, we can make it economically viable. I love that approach.
Yeah, no, that's actually, I mean, I think we might have uncovered a new trend here, where we're talking about the smaller shows going really small and really niche and having more of them. That's
and how do you make these large shows have that small component? How do you do it?
That's a tricky one.
Like, do you break it up into
obviously you break it, you can say
so,
five different shows, 5 different entrances, you
so
know,
it feels
try
like
to do it that way.
Communities or something.
Indeed.
You know, I don't know.
And what I was also going to ask Esther, in terms of making the show more attractive, do you put together your own theme areas using products from all of the exhibitors? At the Hotel Design Show, we built a hotel room over 3 days, which was pretty incredible. You know, so you had to come back every day to see, you know, brick, mortar, wallpaper, so on and so forth, that use components. So theme areas like that to make the show exciting to come to, and also to give the attendees some ideas.
Well, we try to do it different this year. We want to make something that the buyer can do it in their shops, even if they have some small shop. Because sometimes it's just like when you look at a very nice decoration magazine and you say, well, I would like to have my living room like that, but you don't have 200 square meters of living room, but you have only 50 square meters. So you have to adapt what you see. So what we want to do, each hall will have its own identity. We will have 4 halls. Milan halls are huge because we can fit 10,000 square meters of exhibition in 4 halls, so it's quite huge. And we put like 3 squares, and each square is telling a story where we can make people work. We will have, for instance, an area called Vibes, dedicated to textile and fragrances, where the people will be able to touch the textile, to hear the sound of the silk when you touch it, to feel the difference with cashmere and on the wool, or to create education on the products. There are small things that the shop can do inside the shops. So what we want to do, everything we do, it's not to show, but it's to educate. So it's another approach. It's something we want to be able to be replicable in the shops. So that's a bit different, but yes, sometimes we take products from different booths to create a space on sustainability.
But I want to send you an article I wrote about sustainability.
Yes, that's the next question. It's the next question that I have. It's on sustainability. Now, you have these shows. It's great that they're becoming smaller, but they still generate large amounts of waste. There are lanyards, there are business cards, there are schwags, there's all kinds of stuff. And I would think that, you know, the amount of the size of the show could probably fill the same size of a landfill next to it, which is pretty bad for the environment, right? So what can, and this could apply to home good shows, or it can apply to basically any trade show. What can home good shows do better to to move towards that a higher level of sustainability?
Yeah, I don't mind jumping in on this one actually.
Okay.
So
Jimmy.
at the London Design Fair, we had a big industrial warehouse type building when we launched. And one of the first decisions we made when we came out of design school and we were launching this show was that there's no way we're carpeting like 12,000 square meters of aisles and dumping it after the show. So that was one thing we did straight up. And that was back in 2007 when everyone was still carpeting aisles, right? So that seemed crazy ridiculous to us. I think the general move towards better curated, smaller shows means that exhibitors aren't building out like 400 square meter stands anymore and are just choosing like new capsule launch collections to show. And I think that is far more sustainable model as well. In terms of being able to be sustainable and get to scale and make a show valuable as an organizer in the old school, you know, creating real, you know, cash value in a show.
So Robert, can you, I know you've talked about this or written about this. Can you give us like a, you know, like a couple of minutes on what you feel is that sustainability improvement factor?
Sure.
That shows.
I think there's a lot of opportunity. There will be some political roadblocks and some commercial roadblocks, which I saw firsthand by attending Climate Week in New York 2 weeks ago, which you saw the article was a result of that. My suggestion about the digital swag wallet, I'll send you all links to that. I've got one coming out about badges, one coming out about carpeting. For whatever reason, Jimmy, you're ahead of the curve. Carpeting is a big issue to the degree there was a general session which seemed to gravitate towards carpeting. Now, once upon a once, trade shows in the US weren't carpeted and certainly weren't in Europe. Europe started a little bit later. And then they became ubiquitous and people were worried about, well, what are they going to do when they see a concrete floor? Well, they'll get used to it. But there were individuals from the carpet industrial complex at this sustainable meeting, I don't know how they got there, and who were sort of saying, wait a minute, we're going to get hit financially if you don't carpet. Saying, do you remember golf pencils at trade shows? When you go in to register, there'd be a golf pencil and you'd fill out a form and hand it to a kid. What happened to the golf pencil industry? All right, cynicism aside, you have some great partners on this. I'd suggest you look up what the Javits Center is doing. And who else? I think the Toronto Convention Center. Javits Center has a vegetable garden on the roof. And many of the centers are saying it's not even your choice. No single plastic bottles of water anymore. They have these great initiatives. You have to work with them on it, work with the caterer. In all the halls in the US, there are initiatives. Many of them are government buildings. So it's not like a private person saying, I don't know, government have mandates about all of this. And, you know, as I point out, you might not know it, the trade show industry is creates the second most waste in the world after the construction industry. The first time I saw a concrete floor, I said, this is the way it is, until I saw a carpeted floor. So, you know, in terms of sustainability, sacrifices have to be made. And it's always, you know, it's great unless it's in my backyard. So those are some of the issues I think you'll encounter. But I think if you're interested in sustainability, the tide is on your side. The tide is turning.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. If only we could beat the carpeting cartels. That's
okay. He said it, gang. I didn't.
The lobbyists.
I'll say this and then I will disappear. The carpet manufacturer was at the meeting.
Yeah.
Which I found unique, but okay. And that was basically, can we make it more sustainable? This is more sustainable, or don't worry about recycling. Don't make it at all.
Yeah,
it's a hard question.
Actually, I will add one thing in here about role that technology can play as well. So you talked earlier about having the best buyers represented with the biggest checkbooks, and like it's not necessarily important to have like 10 people from Macy's coming. If one's coming, they're still coming with the checkbook. And I have to say, there is buyer habit changes, right? So not every brand or organization or store are sending the same volume of buyers to shows anymore, because it is more expensive. It is environmentally unfriendly to fly 10 people when you could just send 2, right? And I think the role that tech provides is that those that are attending can bookmark, can create a visual representation of their visit. And then when they get back to their company, they can share it visually with their team, right? So I think that's a really powerful tool that only technology will enable to help get those buyers as close to the show experience as possible if they couldn't make it to the show.
Yeah.
Well, also those that do come, I think pre-show activity can be vital. And, clearly when you sign up for a show, every exhibitor sends you a note, so on and so forth. But, using AI, machine learning, or it's just a database, try to connect the right people. And really the onus is on the attendee. Here's what I want to see. Please don't waste my time. I've got X amount of time. So how do you maximize the attendance of half the buyers coming with all of the checkbook? Well, I want to visit every booth, certainly, but I want to visit these booths first, and time permitting, then I'll do some discovery shopping. And that's why, Betina, I think this where tech can really be quite helpful, as long as the information is real and not garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And I think this is a really good note, because we're almost out of time. We started a little late, but we are at the end of the roundtable. This has been a super fun, super exciting discussion. I mean, we talked about making shows more smaller, curated. Tech is playing an important part, but it has to complement the physical show, and the sustainability part of it is also on everyone's mind. So that is super exciting. So, I mean, thank you so much for attending the roundtable. We're all connected, so we should continue to connect on LinkedIn, and also outside of in the real world whenever we can. And unless there are any other last parting thoughts, we can all go our own way and continue with our busy lives.
Well,
I appreciate you bringing us together.
No, thank you.
One more thing about networking. Why do people love going to shows? Well, one of the main products on display at the show is the attendee.
Yes.
And that's why virtual and one-on-one conversations. But another reason, there have been attempts in the past to resell conference content. Doesn't work for most shows, maybe for scientific and medical. For most commercial shows, people will sit through a 45-minute seminar in person, not pay to look at it online, not look at it for free, even to the degree that it can be responsible. If you do have conference at your show, the star quality of your speakers is as important as the content. They're not only going to hear the speaker, they're going to meet the speaker, get on the speaker's radar. And that's something I've learned. They don't have to be a great speaker, but if they have gravitas, if knowing them can help your professional career, that's another reason why people come to shows. And other than that, just straight out celebrities. Some home shows just get football players or TV personalities. I don't recommend that unless those are more for auto shows and things like that. But for design shows, people want to meet key designers, and I won't mention the name. One time at Lighting World, we had one of the most famous designers in the world, and the associations knew the gentleman wasn't a great speaker. He was a great writer, but he wasn't a great speaker. But sell out. So I would add that for getting people to the show.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, that presents a really good way to. Who is one designer that you would like to have at the show, who would draw the audience? Is it Jimmy? Let's start with you. Just give me one designer.
Lighting wise, Michael Anastasiosa, Greek lighting designer based in London, works with I think Magis. You have him at the show, you're going to get a lot of visitors.
Okay, Esther, who would be you?
Because I didn't want to say a name for another, but
no, I mean as not as an exhibitor, but mostly as somebody who you really love. Yeah.
Well, I think I will go for an architect studio who creates some very innovative products to have them telling what they need to the public. So everybody will come just to meet them because they can make a lot of money with being with them. But I don't know, Studio Citerio, for instance, which is in Milano, one of a very good studio, or Mr. Moreira also, who is a wonderful architect.
Betina, who would you like to see at Shop Object?
Oh, it's a long list, a really long list. Luckily, I've had the pleasure of actually meeting some very, very top designers like Jeremiah Brent. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but him and his partner basically are on the cover of Architectural Digest every other month. And we did meet him, and we are doing a collaboration collection with him as a result of meeting him at the show. So it was awesome for us. I would love to see designers, like there's a company out of Brooklyn called the Post Company. They work on boutique hotels, high-end luxury boutique hotels. I'd love to see any of the principals from the Post Company at the show, and to hear, what they're looking for, how they're sourcing, what's the trend for boutique hotels and soft goods.
All right.
Love that. Yeah.
The Post Company. Okay. Very cool. Robert, who's your one person?
Well, just biased. He might be retired, but there was a gentleman by the name of Jeff Millam, who was president of IALD, the International Association of Lighting Designers. Lighting World was his idea, and we were the show management organization, but he put together the conference and really was instrumental in creating that show, which grew into Light Fair, and he'd be the one.
Awesome. Well, great. Thank you so much for coming, and have an excellent day.
You too.
Cheers,
Thank you,
everybody.
You all.